One of the biggest concerns people have when they think about starting a business is the risk. And yes, there are lots and lots of risks out there in the business world, but the risks that we are going to unpack in this video today, these are the risks that they don't usually tell you about. So in this video, we are going to identify some very real risks about building a business that are very rarely talked about. So if you are here with me on the live Zoom call strategy session and you want to hear about these hidden risks, and just go ahead and type pull back the curtain for me in the chat. Let's go. All right. Ready? Good. Great. So, a lot of people will come up to my husband and I and ask us all sorts of questions about how we built our business together, how we left our jobs. This is our mainstay for income. It's a really great thing. And in just about every conversation, normally everybody asks this same exact question. Like, I get it, but wasn't it really risky? Like, how did you mitigate all of those risks? Did it feel really risky? And the answer is, yeah, I get it. There are all sorts of ideals and images of risk tied to entrepreneurship. It generates images of people who have started their own business and then they completely lost everything. They had to start all over again, right? Or maybe it damaged their marriage or their relationship with their kids or their friends and their social life. Or maybe you see some people who they're doing well in business financially, but then they start getting really caught up chasing money and it compromises them, compromises their ethic, their integrity, maybe even like their faith, right? And nobody wants that. Literally, nobody goes into business thinking, I am just going to compromise all of these really great, beautiful areas of my life, right? Especially not the people who are focused on building strong marriages, strong relationships with your family, building a strong relationship with God. So, how many of you struggle with this internal battle? Like this stuff goes through your head. Just type it for me in the chat or wave at me. Hello. Yes. Like, that building a business has the potential to just open up so much freedom in your life, but you know that it also has the potential to open this Pandora's box of risk up in your life too. And it could make you really hesitant to take the next step. Or maybe you're not just getting started or just thinking about getting started. Maybe you have already started building like a side hustle and you would love to grow it and have it replace your current means of income, but you're just really hesitant because of the risk. If you haven't participated yet and this is you, go ahead and just type "this is me" in the comment section or the chat section. Okay, if that's you, then I've got to ask you a really real deal question today. Of course, you have already thought about all of the risks of starting a business, but have you ever stopped and assessed all of the risks of being on the other side of the business? So, what I mean is, if you are seriously considering starting a business or building the one you already have even bigger, then I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you've already mapped out all of the potential risks. Like maybe you've got it on a spreadsheet or it's just on a piece of notebook paper, or maybe you haven't formally written it down. It's just this list that lives in your head and like you lie awake at night sleeping about it, right? So you've mapped out all of the risks of being an entrepreneur, but have you ever stopped and mapped out all of the risks associated with being an employee? This is the portion that not too many people discuss. Not a lot of people will talk about all of the risks associated with being an employee. So that's really what we're going to dive into and unpack today. And that's what I meant when I said about being on the other side of the business. If you are earning income, some sort of business is transacting, right? And you either own the business, that's this side, or you are an employee. You are employed by the business. That is the other side. I see you there in the chat, right? Have you ever taken into the account? No, no, you haven't. I know it. Have you ever taken into account about the risks of being on the side with the least amount of control, flexibility, mobility, talking about upward mobility, right? So most people will assume that keeping your steady job is the safer choice over launching into their own business. But the truth is, starting a business does not all of a sudden just bring risk into your life that did not already exist. Anything that you do, literally anything that you do, any choice that you make brings its own set of risks into your life. So starting a business is not creating this presence of risk that wasn't already there, which means then that being an employee does not avoid risk. That is not the absence of risk, right? They're just two different types of risks. So when you grow up and you enter the real world, you've got to make a decision about what you are going to do for money, right? Like what are you going to do to bring income into your life? And choosing what path to go down is really serious, right? You've got to think about it. It's a big decision. You've got to weigh and measure things out. And so if you are sort of straddling the fence of like, will I, won't I start my own business or grow the one I already have, let's just go ahead and do what no one else ever does. Let's just go ahead and measure out and map out both sides here. Okay. The entrepreneur side and the employee side. So let's just go ahead and make a column here, make a T chart. We'll put entrepreneur on this side, and we will abbreviate that giant word. And then we'll put your employment, being an employee, on this side. And let's just make a chart. This is something that you can do if you haven't already. What are the risks of both? We're going to compare, we're going to contrast. Go ahead and put it in the chat for me. What are some risks of, let's do the entrepreneur side first. Okay. What are some risks of hanging your own shingle? That's what my father-in-law calls it when he started his business. He hung his own shingle. What are the risks of starting your own business? Your business could fail. That's a huge bummer. Right? So biz failing. That's a big want. It consumes all of your time, right? This is definitely a pitfall people can fall into. It can consume all of your time for all of the other things that you want to do in life. Okay, you wind up hating it, so you quit. You end up hating it. So I think what you mean is you start a business and then you realize you hate that business. You hate being a business owner. Okay. You don't necessarily hate the business, you hate being a business owner. Right on. For sure. Okay, so there's the list. I'm gonna keep standing in front of it. Damaging your relationships. Get my camera to follow me and stop. There we go. And legality, liability, yes. Okay, so you could potentially damage your relationships. And you could get into legal trouble. People could sue you. Legality, liability, real deal stuff, right? Real deal grown-up stuff. These are all 100% legit. For sure, your business could fail. It could consume all of your time. Absolutely. You could wind up hating being a business owner and regret that you even did it in the first place. It can absolutely damage your relationships. That's a huge risk. And then, yeah, you've got legal risks. as well. Okay, so as you compare this list, I want you to tell me which of these items could not, woo, camera, hello. Which of these items could not, do not fit into the employee category? Are there any on there that could not fit into the employee category? No, yeah, they could all definitely go over there for sure. So all of these risks, I'll just circle all of them could also happen to you if you are an employee, right? It's not your business that fails, but the business that you work for fails. Has that ever happened to anybody before? You ever worked for a company and it went under and you were out of a job, or do you know anybody that that's happened to? People can absolutely get caught up in their careers working for somebody else and it consumes all of your time. You could hate the job that you have. I know quite a few people like that. I know people who go all the way through college and then they get handed their degree and they don't even want to do the thing that they just went 100K in debt for, right? And of course, I think the damaging relationship thing would be the consumption of all of your time, right? And then of course there's legal risk of liability if you are an employee. There's certain things you could do wrong that could get you in trouble with the law, right? Okay. So all of these things, all of these risks that we've listed out, we're going to stop here at 5 just for the sake of time, could absolutely be over in the employee side. So now I'm going to fill out other things in the employee side of the column now too. And these are ones that we don't necessarily see in the entrepreneur side of the column. All right. So a risk of being an employee that we wouldn't typically, I'm not going to say 100%, because somebody in the comment section will call me out with a perfectly legitimate example of, let's just say 98%. All right, let's just say 98% of the time, these risks will not be over in the entrepreneur side of the equation. So long as you structure your business properly, so long as you set yourself up in the right type of market and you have the right type of product or service, etc. These are all sorts of things that we could get in the weeds on. If you set your priorities and your intentions first and then you build your business from there, these things will not happen to you, okay? So the number one bummer, I think, just call that bummer a risk, of being an employee is your income. It has a ceiling. You have an income ceiling, right? Of course, you can get a raise, or you could move over into a higher paying position. You could go back to school to acquire more skills and knowledge to get a higher paying job in a higher paying market, right? But raises happen incrementally and infrequently. Those better, higher positions that you don't need extra training or education for, that you could just slip into, those also happen like at random and infrequently. And then when you go back to school, you're doing this upfront investment of time and money, and then it therefore takes time to make that difference up before you actually start to really see a return on that education investment, right? So, and that's much like building a business. Yes, that's much like building a business. There's upfront time and capital that goes into building a business, and you've got to wait for that ROI as well, right? But either way, there's a ceiling waiting for you. Like whether you get into a higher paying position or you get a raise, eventually you are going to hit that income ceiling where all you make is just whatever you make, right? Now this isn't talking about a commissions based job. right? This is talking about like if you are an employee for a company, you get paid hourly, you get paid salary. Okay, very good. Yes. So that's exactly it. The ceiling that you hit, it really dictates your decisions. Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to say next. Whether you realize it or not, this ceiling, this income ceiling, this is really what's driving your decisions. It's not you. You're not saying no to the things that you really want to do, honestly, because of too many other factors in your life, right? I mean, maybe your physical health might be holding you back, but in most situations, if there's something that you really want to do, but you have to say no to it, it's because you either can't afford it or because you can't afford to take work off, right? So your income ceiling really drives your decisions. What you get to say yes to and what you have to say no to. It's not really you deciding, it is your paycheck. The second risk, the second bummer about being an employee is your job security is not in your own hands. Being teachers, my husband and I used to be school teachers. This was something that school teachers, man, we know about this. Anybody employed by the government, literally for the last 20 years, you have had some ups and downs, my friend. I hear you, I feel you. So, the security of your family's income, your ability to pay your mortgage, your ability to say yes to what your family wants to do or needs, right? This really sits in someone else's hands. Like, think about it, a board decision, a budget cut. Hello, teachers, right? Or a new manager or a new owner comes in and they just want to go in a different direction, maybe with a different team, and you're not on that team, right? You didn't do anything wrong. These things just happen, right? But when they do, it can be really devastating. And you have no control over the outcome, right? If a business folds or they decide to lay you off, there's not really a whole lot of control. There's not really a whole lot that you can do about that. We're only going to list three on the employee side, again, for the sake of time. But the third one is your time is not your own. Someone else owns your time. Your time is not your own. Someone else owns your time when you work for someone else. Like your schedule is probably built around work, right? It's built around what your employee needs from you first, and then you plug the things in that your family wants and needs from you. So first comes work, then comes the family when you're filling out your calendar. And just like your paycheck, this also becomes a factor that drives your decisions. So the hours that you work versus the hours that you are available for friends and family, right? The flexibility that you do or do not have is driven by the fact that someone else owns your time. It's all determined by someone else's priorities first. That's the main point here. Someone else's priorities come first. And when life happens or something comes up and it conflicts with your employer's priority, then you have to make a choice. Are you going to compromise your position at work? Or are you going to compromise those other areas of your life? And like, so sadly, most of the time, people have to choose their work over maybe that life event that happened that now you don't get to be there because you can't get coverage, right? I think that this was the thing that I resented the most about being an employee when I looked at these things. The income ceiling was a bummer. The job security was constantly this anxiety in the back of my mind that kept me awake so many nights. I can't even tell you. But my time not being mine was what I resented the most about being an employee, not being in control of my time, having to say no to opportunities or missing really important events because I had to work. And so I felt this resentment, but I didn't talk to a whole lot of people about it because I felt like kind of a complainer, kind of a whiner. I also thought that maybe there was something wrong with me, or like something wrong about me, I guess you would say. And that was just until I realized I am not built to be an employee. I am built to be an entrepreneur. And so before we go any further, I just want to make this really clear so that I don't get too much more hate down in the comment section. The point of this conversation is not to villainize your boss or the company that you work for, or to make anyone feel bad about choosing to stay with employment rather than choosing to move forward with building a business. There are plenty of people who do very well in their careers. There are plenty of employers who offer a lot of flexibility and mobility and time freedom, etc. I'm sure they're out there, right? There are people who do very well in their careers, and being employed is just simply the right fit for them and the right fit for their family. And honestly, building a business is not for everyone, right? If you are here, you are not one of the faint of heart, right? Building a business is not for everyone. But like I just said, some people are just built to be business builders. That was me and that was my husband. We were not built to be employees. We were trained and tracked our whole lives throughout our childhood, throughout our education. We were trained and tracked to be employees. And then when we just felt this internal friction about employment, I'm so glad that God illuminated, revealed to me that there wasn't really anything wrong with me or about me. I was just not built to be an employee, right? So some of you I know, wave at me, you feel the same way that I felt, or you're feeling that way right now. Right on. There's just something about working for somebody else that just doesn't fit. And maybe you've even felt bad about it, or like something was wrong with you for feeling that way. Maybe you're even struggling with your sense of loyalty. We have these students, a couple of our students, he and his wife, they are currently building a business together. And it is their goal that they will build this business to the point where he will also exit his career. So right now, she is not working. He's in his career. They're building a business together on the side. Their goal is he will eventually completely exit their career, just like John Paul and I did. And this will be their main income stream, right? They'll be business owners. And they are super duper excited about it. But he has told us several times that he really struggles with feeling disloyal about leaving his career, as though when he steps away, he's just going to leave this huge hole and they're really going to be, like struggling and I guess scrambling when it is that he goes. And I completely understand that feeling. John Paul felt those same types of feelings before he left his teaching career. He was a high school choir director. So it's not like he just walked away from a standard classroom. He had a choir program that he had worked for years in the district to build, and he was going to walk away from that. Lots of emotions, lots of feelings that you got to grapple with. Like, you just got to take them and like look them straight in their face. These emotions that just go hand in hand with navigating this process. But when the idea of building something of your own just becomes so strong that you can no longer ignore it, man, you got to start making some decisions. And the whole point of this video and the whole point of this exercise is really to get you to see you're not deciding between one risky option and one safe option. You're simply just choosing between two different options of how you will earn money, right? That's really it. How are you going to bring income into your life? And both of those options come with their own sets of risks, okay? So really just ask yourself these questions. This would be a really great like homework assignment later in the day. Just come back to this video, to this point in the video, re-listen to these questions I'm about to ask, and talk them out with your spouse. Write the answers to these questions down. Like, which set of risks works best for us as a family, right? Or maybe you're a single person. Which set of risks works best for me? Which set of risks gives us the ability to do the things that we want to do, to have the things that we want to have, not just stuff, but experiences, right? Like we are not a stuff family, we are an experiences family. We want to go, we want to do, we want to see. Which set of risks allows you to make decisions for yourself and for your family based on your values instead of always making decisions based on your obligations? That is a huge one, right? So I just told you guys that my husband used to be a teacher. I used to be a teacher as well, but he was a teacher for a lot longer. And like I said, he built up a high school choir program within our school district. And he and I started building our business in 2019. We got like rolling really informally, choppily. I'll just say sloppily. I'll just go ahead and say it. In 2017, we got a really sloppy start, but in 2019, we really cleaned up our act and we were like, we're gonna actually pursue this for real, like we're actually grown-ups doing this. So we launched our real estate investing business in 2019, and it was just going to be this thing that we did on the side. He was going to continue to grow his choir program, continue to be a teacher all the way through retirement, and we were going to do this on the side, and it was going to replace my income that I was no longer bringing in, replace and like exponentially exceed my previous teacher salary, right? So we started building this in 2019, and just like everyone else in 2019, we never saw COVID coming, right? Tell me in the chat, did you know COVID was coming? No, you didn't. Okay, and so for reasons that I still don't understand due to COVID, things in the school district that we were a part of, they shifted during that time. I don't really know what happened, but enrollment was down. And all of a sudden, teachers all over the district, their positions were taking a hit. John Paul was one of them. And he went from being employed at a 100% status to an 80% status. So his salary, let me just put that into perspective. His salary went down from where it was that we were used to 80% of that, right? But my response to it, you guys, I was like so excited and I was so geeked and I was like, yes, like let's go. Like I responded to it completely opposite to how a lot of other people's spouses probably responded, with happiness and with relief, because we were building this thing on the side, and this thing that we were building on the side, it had so much more potential and upside and mobility than his teaching career. No offense, right? So this happened in 2022. It was a couple of years after COVID when things in the district had shifted, and in 2022, that's when the district really felt the drop in enrollment. So in 2022, this is when his teacher salary was diminished, and I took it as a sign from the Lord, as I do so many times. And I told him, I was like, babe, we got to go all in on this. These shifts and these crashes in the world of employment, like they just keep happening. Like we sat down and we had this discussion. We were like, hello, 9/11 caused a lot of unrest and upset. The travel industry took a huge hit. I grew up in a touristy town in northern Michigan, and the industry of our town after 9/11, because people weren't traveling. I don't know if you are remembering, but people were a little bit afraid to travel after that event happened. The travel industry in our small little modest town took a huge hit. It's still like 25 years later trying to recover from it. And then we had the global financial crisis, right? Like 08, 09, the housing market and the banks crashed and the governments were bailing all sorts of businesses out. So many industries were affected. And then along comes COVID, right? So I sat my sweet husband down and I told him, I'm just like, the way the things are going in the world, we need to have as much control as possible in our hands when it comes to our income and to our livelihood. And thankfully, John Paul agreed. He's so agreeable. So he and I spent the next few years then building what was just going to be our side hustle. We pivoted to a goal of, okay, now this is going to become our main source of income. And as soon as it gets to that point, you're going to leave teaching. So that became our goal. And when we reached that goal, which was about a year and a half ago, not a year and a half later, it was about a year and a half ago, it was like early 2025. He went into his administrator's office and he announced to them, he let them know that he was going to be leaving his teaching position at the end of the school year. And he was really nervous. He was really nervous to go in and have this conversation. Like, he had been with the district for 18 years. He had built this program. He just knew that they were going to be like, we can't do this without you. But that's not how they responded. Instead, his administrators were very sad to see him go, but they themselves admitted, ooh, we are actually quite relieved because we were planning to announce to the community quite soon that the school district, yet again, is about to go through another multi-million-dollar budget deficit. And had you remained, Mr. Clark, that's what people called him, right? Mr. Clark. Had you remained, Mr. Clark, your position for the next school year would have been reduced to a 40% position, meaning again, like, he had been teaching for years and years and years at receiving 100% of his income. Then they reduced him to 80% of his income, and then they were going to reduce him to 40%. 40% of his original salary would be all the district could offer him due to another budget deficit that apparently nobody saw coming. After 18 years of service, this was what he was going to be stepping into for his 19th year, right? I don't know if you can hear it in my tone. I'm a little bit cynical about it. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna bring the positive back, okay? Positive Blair is back. But John Paul had so many conversations with so many people that he worked with for the remaining of that year, because a lot of people were getting reduced. This wasn't just Mr. Clark. This was Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so across the district. And it's a really big district, school district, that he and I both taught for. And some people were just getting their salaries reduced, but some staff members were getting laid off entirely. It was a huge blow for their families. Obviously, this was very devastating and we were very sad for them. But for us, it was confirmation. Remember how I thought in 2022 when his salary was first initially incrementally lowered? I'm like, this is a sign from the Lord. It turns out it was, you guys. God's timing lining up absolutely perfectly. And some people said to us when they heard the story, like, wow, you started building just at the right time. You made the decision to leave your career just at the same time. Like, how did you know? And I got to tell you that there was no gift of foresight or luck in this equation. Years ago, when I left teaching, our income greatly diminished, obviously, and I knew that I needed to do something for money, but I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to leave the home. I wanted to stay home with the sweet little baby that we had just had, who is about to turn 11 years old now. Goodness. But anyway, I was prompted by the Holy Spirit to not go back to work for someone else, but to build my own business instead. And it was just really out of the blue. I had never, ever thought prior to that about being a business owner, about starting my own company. And all of these things that have happened, all of the shifts due to COVID and all of just the fallout in the years thereafter, like, nobody could have seen this coming but God, right? But God did, and he covered us. But what I want to make clear is he didn't just prompt us to start a business and then cover us. None of this was at random, right? The reason why he prompted me to start a business is because before I ever received that like revelation from him, like I hit my knees and asked him for help. We were going through a rough time. And so I just hit my knees and I cried out to God for help. And from that point, moving forward, this whole thing, like not just our business, our whole lives, like marriage and parenting and ministry and our health, we've been doing our part. This is the point I really want you to take home. You've got to do your part. We were doing our part this whole time, this decade plus of covering it in consistent prayer and consistently asking the Holy Spirit for guidance, consistently trusting like that the Lord was ordering our footsteps, guiding us along our path. Whether you choose to stay employed or leave and build your own business, or maybe you're going to do a combination of the two, you have to do your part in this whole walk, in this whole journey. You've got to cover yourself and your family and your income. You've got to bathe all of this in prayer. You've got to consistently seek the Holy Spirit for wisdom. You've got to consistently read in the Bible, because you would see in Proverbs 22:3 that it says, the prudent see danger and they take refuge, but it is the simple who just keep going and they pay the penalty. I believe that when the Bible says the simple just keep going, they're not knowingly walking toward danger. They can't see it because they're so distracted. They're so distracted by all this stuff that's going on in the world that doesn't matter. They're not paying attention to what's going on and to what they need to prepare for, right? Like earlier, I listed a series of events that you are all very familiar with: 9/11, the global financial crisis, COVID. People are now all in a tizzy about AI. AI is coming to take everybody's jobs, or at least that's what everybody on the internet wants you to believe, right? Whether that's real or not, I'm not throwing my opinion in the ring here. I don't know anything about that. However, I do know that it's ruffling some feathers. And so this teaching, it's all about risk. We're talking about risk today, right? Honestly, I think regardless of what you pursue in life, the biggest risk that a person can take is to bury their head in the sand and not acknowledge that events occur in the world. They occur in the world. Seems like they're happening more and more in this day and age, right? And every time they occur, they catch all sorts of people off guard. People's lives are thrown out of whack. It can be really, really devastating. So if we are pretty much guaranteed that more events like this will occur in the future, and you know this, then you don't need a crystal ball. You know, like people going back to people asking us like, how did you know this was the perfect timing? Everything just aligned for you guys. You guys are so lucky. Like, no, you don't need a crystal ball. You don't need some sort of sixth sense. There's danger in not being diligent. There's danger in not being intentional. There's danger in not paying attention. And when I say pay attention, I don't mean you need to get caught up in all of the socio-political drama, but it would be good for you to know what's going on, like with the economic drama, right? Ecclesiastes 11:2 says, invest in 7 ventures. Yes, invest in 8. For you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. So whether your preferred option for earning income is owning your own business, or whether your preferred option is to work for someone else's business, King Solomon here, the wisest man that ever lived, he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, by the way. King Solomon advises you to have at least a handful of other income streams. Regardless of what you do, have some stuff going on the side. So the risk of building a business, it is very real. Yes, I'm not going to pretend otherwise. It takes work. It takes effort. It takes real commitment. It takes diligence. You get blindsided every now and then. Things go wrong. Things don't go your way. All right. Stuff gets a little hairy, scary every now and then. out there in the business building world. But everything in your life that is worth pursuing, it comes with its own set of risks, like getting married, having children, going on an adventure, anything that is worth pursuing. All of these things come with their own set of risks. And you know this saying that says, choose your hard, right? Well, in this scenario, I'm going to call you out and I'm going to say, just choose your risk. Which set of risks are you going to choose? That is simply the biggest decision factor here if you are thinking about starting a business or just keeping your day job. So if you joined me on the live Zoom strategy call, thank you. Thank you for showing up and showing out. You guys are awesome. If you would like to join me in the future for a live Zoom strategy session, the link is going to be in the description below. Just click on that link, fill it out, and we will send the invitation to the Zoom call directly to your inbox. These take place every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'm in Michigan, so we do Eastern time. Now, the benefit is if you hop on the Zoom call, and this is not a one-on-one session, this is open for whoever hops on the call. If you hop on the Zoom call, before I go into the teaching, I open up the floor for your questions. We do some problem solving. I give you feedback on what you've got going on. And if you're joining me on YouTube, yes, you get this really awesome, amazing teaching, right? You get the teaching on YouTube, but if you join me in the Zoom call, then you get the strategy session. So we open up time before I do the teaching, and then when I sign off from the teaching, I stay on after for anybody who might have hopped on late or maybe another question popped up in your head. You want to ask me some more stuff. So if you join me on the live Zoom call, you get the strategy session, and that is the game changer, baby. So thank you so much for joining me. Sign up for your next strategy session, and I will see you in the next video. You guys take care.